On first down, they hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, I-N-D-Y. And again, it's picked off. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with a second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac. Kenny Moore gets to Deshaun Watson. That's a sack for Kenny Moore. Kenny has a pick and now a sack in the game.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to the Bring the Juice podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. He has a YouTube channel called Philly Take with RB. He has over 1,600 subscribers on his YouTube channel, a YouTube channel that basically promotes Philadelphia teams like the Eagles and the Sixers and others. And his name is Ryan, and he joins me now. Ryan, how are you today?
Yo, what's going on, man? How's everyone doing today? Appreciate you for bringing me on here. I'm excited to talk some sports as always, man.
Yep, absolutely, man. That's what we've been trying to do, just crank out football content of some kind. And this is the kind of time right now to try and link up with some people. And first question I wanted to ask you, Ryan, was, you know, obviously you identify yourselves as a Philadelphia sports fan. So why don't you take me through the story behind, you know, how you became a Philadelphia sports fan, how you kind of came to like all kinds of Philadelphia sports?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, honestly, with Philadelphia sports, I know it's like this with a lot of teams, but it really is bred into you from a young child, at least for me.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, having the crazy household, the dad going absolutely nuts. I mean, it's just kind of, you know, I look up, I'm 5-6 years old and I'm watching Eagles games just going crazy, and it just grows on you, and it the passion, the love for the game, the teams. It's just here in Philadelphia, man, we embrace these sports, we do. And you know, I just love sports. Honestly, they're one of the biggest parts of life, as you know. And yeah, man, I really just got into it from a young age, and it's kind of what keeps me going throughout the week, you know. Just watching a game or going out playing with my friends.
Yep, absolutely, man. I can totally agree. A lot of people know from my experiences that know me personally that football particularly and other sports have basically saved my life on a numerous amount of occasions. It's been there for me at my lowest of lows, and it's turned me into the person I am and the sport lover that I am. So I always say that my second biggest love is sports. So, you know, it's always fun to talk sports. So let me ask you for, obviously you're an Eagles fan, a 76ers fan, and a Phillies fan. Is there one that you favor more than the others, or is the love for all of them mutual?
I would have to say it's mutual. It's a good question, actually. I've been asked before, and you know, I love all my sports teams. I feel like they come, you know, with each season. It's obviously when it's Eagles season, you know, I'm all in on the Eagles, or when basketball's here, I'm all in on the Sixers. But overall, when I take a step back and look at it, man, I'm just blessed to be here in Philly and love these teams. And I think I love them all the same, man.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with it. I'm not a guy that every time when I grew up in Ohio, so everyone tells me, you know, you got to stick to your roots, right? You got to stick to the Ohio teams. Well, I'm a diehard Ohio State football fan, or Ohio State fan in general, because, you know, that's the school that a lot of my family's gone to. We ride or die for the Buckeyes, but obviously being an Indianapolis Colts fan threw a lot of people off when I grew up being a Colts fan. I was one of the few. So let me ask, how did you get started with YouTube? I know I told you my story of how I started with Cody, but how did you get started with deciding I'm going to make a YouTube channel talking about Philadelphia sports?
That is an excellent question, man. Let me tell you. So I probably don't have as traditional or, you know, as nice a story as others. So about, what is it? Okay. So about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, right coming off the summer last year, I'm a big 2K fan. I like to play video games a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm just playing games and I start making a few videos for 2K. Nothing crazy, not really putting my all into it, just having fun with that. So I made a few 2K videos. And on Christmas Day, I have family over and I'm watching the Sixers and they completely trounce the
Mhm.
Milwaukee Bucks. They embarrassed
Mhm.
them on Christmas Day. And I just sat in front of my webcam and I just started ranting about it. And I just started going off and having fun. And I made a couple more videos, when the Sixers beat the Lakers the day before Kobe passed, and it just started to rack up. And I found that love, and I found, I've always been the guy to talk about sports. I usually annoy my family members, my friends, but dang, like, yo, I can talk sports. So I just started talking. I've been getting better, and the last 5 months, it's just gone off.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally relate. I've talked so much sports that, my dad and my brother and I are all sport lovers, but I'm just to the point where my family sometimes gets annoyed with me. So I, like you said, go to YouTube where I can speak my mind and talk stuff about sports and people listen to you. And that's the great part about it.
Exactly. And
So,
it's great because you like not only do you, like when you're around your family, your friends, you get the same perspectives, it's usually the
mhm.
same. But I'm here for the debates, all the talks, everything, man. I love
Yep.
it.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. So let me ask you, because we were just talking about it before we started this, that your Eagles videos that you talked about during the draft. So from what I've seen so far, I've seen a couple of different draft reaction videos and montages that have included your videos in some of them. A lot of them are either Eagles montages or Cowboy montages, things of that nature. Um, I think what your one video has 86,000 views on it. The one has 36,000, and you have a couple others that are up there.
Yeah.
How's it feel for you to see those couple videos just kind of take off? Like seeing your reaction to a draft pick just skyrocket into all these views that so many people are seeing.
Dude, it's unbelievable. It's like because before the draft, I'm sitting. I think it was a few days before I just hit 500 subscribers, and I'm like, man, like I'm starting to create something out of this. And I hadn't really done a lot of Eagles content, but I love the Eagles. I have so much passion, and I was like, I was gonna do a video each night of the draft, but I was like, yeah, why don't I just set my phone up and just see what happens? And
Mhm.
even some of the Eagles' disgrace of a pick, like in the second round, you know, it actually ended up working out good for me. And I post the video off my phone, which I didn't really expect anything to go crazy. And, in the first hour, it's at, 10,000 views. And it just keeps going and keeps going. And these Cowboys fans are coming at me, and I love making them mad. So it's
Oh
been
yeah,
amazing,
and
man.
everybody knows that the Cowboys fan base is the most delusional fan base in all of football. We just have to
Thank
have our
you.
fun with Cowboys fans.
Thank you, and it sounds great hearing that from someone from a different fan base. It
Yes.
sounds, music
Yep.
to my ears, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was gonna say I did a stream for our podcast. I think on day 2 after the first round, because obviously the Colts didn't have a first round draft pick, but we had the 34th and what was soon to be the 41st pick. So I kind of set up shop, talked to some people, and was streaming the draft. And I think anyone that watched our podcast or watched that stream knows, if you want to go back and look at it, it's quite funny. My reaction to Jonathan Taylor was quite similar to your reaction to Jalen Rhaegar. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But before we get into the off season for the Eagles and your draft and everything else, why don't you give me your best Eagles moment? Because I actually have a good story that I want to tell you. But what's your best Eagles moment?
Oh man, dude, tough question. There's so many. Um, besides the obvious, besides 2017, watching that final Hail Mary from Brady to Gronk dropped to the ground and knee dropped to the ground. I'll pick something exclusive. So, a true story, my first Eagles game, I went to an Eagles playoff game against Green Bay. It was the year that the Packers won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. And just, I didn't know what to expect. It was my first game. I'm a little younger and, it's freezing cold. And just walking throughout the tunnel and just watching all these Eagles fans surround a Green Bay cheesehead and just go at them and just go at them. I just felt the love. I'm getting high-fived by dudes who I don't even know,
Yeah.
40 years old, and I just felt the love, man. I felt the passion. I love that moment as an Eagles fan.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than that. I'm actually going to go to your obvious because I actually got to work that Super Bowl, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah,
No
so
way.
I actually was in college during that time, and our school won a bid to allow like 20 students to go work the Super Bowl week. So we did everything that week. We're interacting with Eagles fans, and you had Patriots fans. You had a lot of Vikings fans there because obviously it's in Minnesota. And we got to work the game and everything else and work the week prior to that and see so many cool things. And I'm telling you this, you mentioned the Hail Mary to Gronk at the end of that game. Let me
Yep.
tell you, I've never heard a stadium get so quiet. And then when the moment you saw that ref throw his hands up in the air saying game's over, the eruption I heard, it sounded like you just had the volume down and then cranked it up at that moment. It's just, it's like, dude, I've never heard a stadium rock that way before because I just have never been to a game that was that important. And I'm not an Eagles fan, but I was so happy that the Patriots did not win. I was just so happy that the Eagles won that. It made the trip, my ride back home to Ohio, that much better.
Dude, let me tell you, man, that pass was up in the air for so long.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like he gets out of the grip. I think it was of Brandon Graham. And I'm just like, no, because I can just see it happening. Brady always had the fourth quarter comebacks. He always did it. And you see Gronk running down the field, and I think it was Jalen Mills or Rasul Douglas. They're both tipping it up in the air. I'm like, come on, hit it down,
Hit it
please.
down.
and everyone's just standing there for a second. I'm like, please, no flags.
Yeah, that's
And
the
I just
mood
dropped
of
to the
everybody
ground.
in the stadium. Everyone was just like, we're looking around. Is there anything? Is there anything at all? Like, just making sure this is happening. And then when the players started running off the field, everyone knew, yes, this is it.
Dude, it was unbelievable. It's because it's with Philly sports, man. Like, this is our life. So, like,
Yep.
all of these years for the Eagles, and I know I'm younger, but still, like, growing up and watching just every year, disappointment, and we finally did it. Like,
Yep.
we are holding up that trophy, and we beat the best of all time. We beat Brady and we beat Belichick, and that made it even better, man. Seeing Brady walk off that field, there's nothing like it. It's the best day of my life, man.
Totally. And then, that Super Bowl was nothing but an offensive juggernaut of a game, almost
Oh my
1,000
God.
yards offensively. And there was only one sack the whole game. And that was, I think, the second to last drive where I think it was Brandon Graham that strip sacked Brady to give you guys a chance to get a field goal to put you guys in the lead. I mean, that was an incredible watch.
Dude, I mean, most yards in a game all time, one sack, one punt. Offense, it was only offense. And Nick Foles went toe to toe with the GOAT. And it was unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. It was easily my best sports moment. So now let's go to your off season. So how would you grade this off season for them? I know you guys had traded for Darius Slay, very good corner, kept a bunch of your secondary guys like Jalen Mills, Rodney McLeod. I think that's very smart to keep those guys around. Obviously, you lost Malcolm Jenkins and a few others. What's your impression been of the offseason for them?
Yeah, if I would have to go with a grade, I'd probably go with a B.
B.
A lot of people B. A lot of people like to highlight, my second round reaction and everything, and I still don't agree with that pick. But if you look at what we did in the offseason, in free agency, we went all defense. Like usually we target the offense more. But in terms of the defense, like we finally have a lockdown corner where I can sit back and say, you know what, I trust that guy every Sunday. He's going to lock up the number one receiver in big play
Mhm.
slay. And we did lose Malcolm Jenkins. I wish we wouldn't have. I wish we would have paid him or given him the years that he wanted. But like you said, McLeod, Mills, Will Parks, we go out and get Jatavis Brown. We go out and we get Javon Hargrave to pair with Fletcher Cox. And I know we always value the trenches,
Mhm.
and our defensive line is going to be crazy, man. I think it could be top 5 at least. And when you look at the offense we took to the draft to address the offense, we did a lot better later on in the draft, I would say.
Right.
And I'm not saying Rhaegar is a bad pick or anything, but he has a lot of upside. And
Mhm.
later on, we go out and snag a couple receivers. We trade for Marquise Goodwin. We still have Deshaun Jackson. It's going to be a lot of fast guys in that locker room. Going to be a lot of competition. And
Yeah.
with what we did, I think we made some solid moves um, outside of that second round pick. But I think we had a decent offseason. I do. And I don't think Howie's done yet because you can never count that guy out. He's a
Mhm.
cat magician.
Yep. Absolutely. Now let's move to the 2020 draft. So, without talking about any particular players, how would you grade the draft that you had without naming any particular players?
I would probably also say a B or a B plus. I
Okay.
think we filled some voids. I was looking to go into this draft looking to address wide receiver and linebacker because, you know, we we we've always undervalued linebacker, and it's an undervalued position now in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Mhm.
Um, but I thought we snagged a couple good receivers, guys who have a lot of upside, who are explosive and elusive. And in terms of the linebacker position, we got some guys who can develop. That's what I'm looking for, guys who can develop. I thought we got a steal, on defense at safety, and we got some good trench help as well. So I think overall, outside of a pick or two, I thought we had a pretty solid draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, you were right. And when you talked about the linebacker being an undervalued position, as a Colts fan, when you have Darius Leonard, believe me, we know what it's like for a guy to get undervalued as Darius Leonard has. I mean, outside of Ray Lewis, Darius Leonard is having the the best first 2 seasons of a linebacker in NFL history, and it's quite shocking to me how many fans and teams fail to address the linebacker position in more depth, because to me that's one outside of pass rush is the most important position on the defense.
It's crazy, man. I don't understand why it continues to happen. Because, like you said, Darius Leonard, guy is a difference maker. And
Yep.
not only are these guys, back in coverage or on a tight end or something, but they can be sent in some blitz packages. They can roam around. You can put them in coverage, drop them in the box. You can do a lot with a linebacker. And when you have that dominant presence on the field, right smack there in the middle behind the line, it
Mhm.
does a lot for your defense. A lot.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go to your first rounder here, and that's Jalen Rhaegar here. So, I told you before, it seemed to me that it was kind of like when the Colts drafted Jonathan Taylor. He's a good player, just maybe wasn't the move we were expecting. So it kind of came as a shock right away. It's a very interesting pick because you had names like Justin Jefferson and Brandon Ayuk and other names that were still on the board. uh going Thinking about it now that you've had 2 weeks to kind of digest it, what do you feel about that pick now?
I think Jalen Rhaegar is a solid pick. I do. And like you said, there was a good variety of people. Now, Justin Jefferson, he's going to be your more sure guy. He'll have a lot of
Yeah.
catches. He has those hands. Jalen Rhaegar, I think as the weeks approached up to the NFL draft, I think Howie Roseman and our front office staff really liked Rhaegar, especially when he posted that video of him running I think it was the 4.2, 4.27, and just all the tools, all the attributes. When you look into what he was able to do in college with 3, 4 different quarterbacks, I think we were going for a home run pick here. I think we were looking at the upside We definitely need speed. We need a guy who's going to be explosive and can catch the ball and run upfield, because we know last year the Eagles had so many drops. They did. And we need that home run cut type of dude that we can put on the other side of Deshaun Jackson.
Mhm.
And last year we were just too sluggish, man. We were too sluggish. I think Howie is going for speed. I think he really is valuing speed at the wide receiver position. And I think it was a solid pick.
Yeah, so speaking of receivers, I mean, you drafted three of them, with Rager, Hightower from Boise State, and Watkins out of Mississippi State. And also you acquired Marcus Goodwin for a trade with the 49ers on the second day as well. You hit on it perfectly that, you're going for speed here. I mean, Marquise Goodwin, Jalen Rhaegar, Deshaun Jackson, all guys that can run sub 4.3s on the 40 time or better. I mean, how do you feel about going so top heavy with this in this draft with the receivers? If you ask me, I thought it was a smart idea because obviously you looked at the end of the season, what did they have? They had very few guys that you could rely on to help Wentz in any way outside of a crippled Zach Ertz. So to see you go four wide receivers deep in this draft, what was your impression of going with so many of those?
I thought it was a great idea, just like you said. In Philly here, when people want something, all you're gonna do is hear about it. That's how Philly fans are. And all we've been talking about, like you said, going down the stretch last season, Carson Wentz was throwing the ball to my next door neighbors. He really had nobody, nobody at all, except our tight ends and Miles Sanders. And we need to hit on wide receivers. We need guys who are going to develop, for the future. Now, I still believe that Carson Wentz needs that definitive number one, which he has been neglected of.
Mhm.
But when you have these guys here, you have these speedy guys you're going to plug in, and you have Deshaun Jackson, who last year in the first game of the season had two long bomb touchdowns. It's just that he got hurt. I think this team is trying to shape it, like I said, a speed identity team. And whether it's Goodwin, I think Goodwin's going to develop and into that Torrey Smith type role that we had in 2017. I'm
Yep.
just worried about if his feet are healthy, if his feet are under him. If it
Mhm.
is, I think that could be a steal, swapping 6-round picks. These guys later on, I think they can develop. If not, they'll be there as depth in case we have more injuries, because personally, all we do is get injuries. So I
Mhm.
think overall, I love it, man. I love that we addressed wide receiver with a passion. I love that we put a lot of assets into it. And hopefully we will come out with at least two guys, in my opinion, that can be solid for this team.
All right. So the moment I've been waiting to ask you, Jalen Hurts. So obviously I saw your reaction. If anyone wants to see Ryan's reaction to that, just go to his YouTube channel. It speaks for itself. Um, so did that one sting a little bit? Does it still now?
Dude, it stung, and it still does. It just leaves a distasteful, just disgusting taste in my mouth, man. It hurts, man. It, no pun intended, but it hurts.
Mhm.
Think about it, man. There's multiple factors that go into it. Like, first off, not only did we use a second round pick when we could have gotten a sure guy that will be here every single week on the field, that could contribute right away. Like I said, linebacker. There were still some good linebackers on the board. There were wide receivers that we could have paired, maybe a Denzel Mims. We could have went for a corner, but we used a second round pick, and I don't hate the player. I don't. I
Right.
just don't like the timing of the pick. I've been one to say myself, we need insurance at the quarterback position. We know Wentz has gotten hurt every single year. We know Nick Foles came in and took us to the promised land. But a second round pick that we could have used to maybe trade up in the first, that we maybe could have went out and sent Bill O'Brien for DeAndre Hopkins, and
Yeah.
we take a quarterback. It's like that hurts. And then if you know Philly sports, quarterback controversy has been a big thing here for
Yeah.
years. And it's just like, I feel when you pay Carson Wentz, you declare him the man, he's going to be entering his prime, 27 years old. And last year, showing what he did, literally, he answered the question that I needed to be answered. And it was leadership. Last year, he took a bunch of nobodies and put them on his back and led us to the playoffs. And if it weren't for a cheap shot, we had a good chance of winning that game. And now you draft what could possibly be his replacement. Now he's going to be looking over his shoulder. And, there are some Eagles fans who are on the opposite side. They want to see Wentz go. Every time he, comes up hobbling, or if he throws a bad pass, it's going to be trade Wentz. And I just think it could get ugly, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Carson Wentz because I feel like he's had a little bit of the what I would call the Andrew Luck syndrome when it comes to this sort of thing where, he's been put in a lot of bad situations where he's had to do a little too much and it gets himself injured.
Yep.
And ultimately that can hurt the performance of the team in the end. So with that pick, what do you think? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what do you think that means for the future of Carson Wentz? Does it mean that maybe in a year or two he's gone? Or do you think, like you said, it's just insurance?
I mean, if I'm being really honest, and most Eagles fans won't acknowledge this because they don't want to say it, but I will. I speak objectively, and I believe that this is saying to Carson Wentz, we don't trust you. We don't, because you've been down every
Yep.
single year, and it's nothing about talent. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, can do things that a lot of quarterbacks can't do. He's very talented, and he's shown that. But even if it's a cheap shot, even if he continues to go down, I think this is Howie Roseman saying, we don't want to be in that same situation in the playoffs again, where you go down and we have a 40-year-old Josh McCown who hasn't played in however long coming in. And I personally, I would have addressed it in terms of veterans in free agency. But I think this could be saying, like you said, Carson, if you keep going down, even though we paid you, we have a guy right here who's ready to develop, who's ready to step in. And if he does well, who knows what could happen going into the future,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot more questions that are going to have to be answered at some point. All right. So I don't know how your knowledge is of the Indianapolis Colts, but I'll ask you a quick question about it. The Colts have had a very busy and productive offseason. We re-signed our left tackle. Anthony Costanzo was the third best left tackle in all of football last year. Acquired DeForest Buckner for our first round pick, Xavier Rhodes, and many others in free agency. Chris Ballard kind of took a different, more aggressive approach than he has in the last 2 years he was there. And obviously in the draft, we drafted guys like Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor in the second, and we even snagged Jacob Eason in the fourth round, where many assumed he was going to be a second rounder along with Jalen Hurts. Fell all the way to the fourth, and the Colts snagged him. Just in generosity and curiosity here, what are your overall thoughts on the Colts offseason and what they can become this year?
Yeah. So I do stay up with different teams, especially teams like the Colts. And the reason because of that is because of Frank Reich. I love Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we know what he did for Philly. And I think the Colts are building, or have already built and continue to build, a solid team. Like, I really thought, last year before Andrew Luck decided to retire, I thought the Colts were going to be a deep playoff team. I did. And
Mm-hmm.
you guys continue to make magic happen while not expending too much capital. Like, you guys
Yep.
are, if I'm correct, still in a pretty good cap situation. And you
Yes.
go out and add a quality receiver early in the second. You add Jonathan Taylor, who, by the way, is from New Jersey, and he's a talented dude. I could see him being a steal in the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, man, you guys hit on a lot of key areas in free agency in the draft. And the only question I have is about who is going to be that future quarterback for the Colts. If you guys
Yep.
have that figured out, I'm telling you, man, the Colts are a legit threat this year and in the future as well. You guys are in a pretty solid situation.
Yeah, I mean, best offensive line in football, an improving defense, could be a top 10 defense this year with the addition of a DeForest Buckner, who's one of the best at the defensive tackle position. And, adding Phillip Rivers, whatever people may think about Phillip Rivers, is still a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. And yeah, like you said, Colts fans have a thing for kind of taking some former Philadelphia Eagles people. I mean, like you mentioned, Frank Reich and even Trey Burton, who was once a Philadelphia Eagle during that Super Bowl run as well. He's now with the Colts as well. Yeah, I think that definitely that can go a long way as long as we can. That's kind of the biggest question what for the Colts right now is who's the long term quarterback. But we're going to figure that out here next year or the year after. But last question I have for you. I want you to try to be objective here because I know your Philadelphia bias might slip here a little bit. I'm going to check you on it if you do.
Hey,
But
man, always objective.
are you confident are you confident in saying the Eagles will win the NFC East again this year, or will it be the Dallas Cowboys?
Very good question. I believe if the Eagles stay healthy, that is the number one factor, health. If this team stays healthy, we can be a 10-win team, an 11-win team. I believe it's going to be a dog race in the NFC East. It's a two-team race, in my opinion, the Eagles and the Cowboys, like you said.
Mhm.
And I think it could all come down to week 16 in Dallas. We face down in Jerry World. That could decide the division. But overall, man, I'm gonna be positive here. I'm gonna be optimistic. I think the Eagles will stay healthy. I think Wentz is gonna prove all these doubters wrong. And I think the Eagles win the division by one game. I do. I don't think Dallas has shored up that defense enough. And I think the
Yep.
Eagles have gotten younger. They've what so-called rebuilt, but at the same time, we are still a competitive team and we've gotten younger. And I think we're ready to explode, man.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it ultimately does depend on how Mike McCarthy elevates this team, if he even elevates the Cowboys. I mean, that's
Big
the ultimate
questions to
question there.
come, man. Big questions. I mean, a lot of questions about Mike McCarthy. It also goes to say whether he's even going to have as much input as we believe, because
Yep.
Jerry Jones likes to stick his nose where he shouldn't.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this one, Colts Nation. I hope you enjoyed this one. We got a lot of great inside depth on Philadelphia Eagles fans and the team as well. Ryan, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Derek, thank you for having me on, man. Hope to come back sometime. Appreciate all you guys, and I wish you guys the best of luck in the season.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. We appreciate the support. And as always, go Colts.